Hello, Dr. Carp here, and this is entitled Understanding Gut Health. And today we're going to be discussing what makes up gut health so that you can understand it clearly, concisely. That's why we're using a mind map. A mind map basically gives you a visual representation of information so that you can remember it, and you can also place it in context in your mind. Let's jump right into it. It'll be important for you to subscribe to this channel because we'll be building out this mind map. So as we build it out, you'll be able to understand it even more, going back and revisiting it over and over until we have a really big mind map. Most of the American population has some sort of gut disturbance, whether that's reflux, food allergies, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel diseases like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. All of these are treated really singularly with a reflux med or with modulating the immune system. Lots of different ways, but mostly it's not really attacked by having a clear understanding of what makes up gut health. Zach Bush, in all of his talks, Zach Bush is a really amazing doc, talks about really how we should think about gut health being the microbiome, barrier function, and the immune system. Well, let's start thinking about it from the microbiome. We hear about that in the news all the time, but ultimately we need to think about it as an ecosystem because the gut is really a connection with the outside. It is essentially an ecosystem, just like you go to a field or you go to a beach that has bacteria and viruses and parasites. The same thing is going on in the microbiome that is inside you. And the more we learn, the more we realize every day, the more we realize that if you have a healthy ecosystem, you have a healthy body, and it affects everything from your brain to from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Every organ, every internal organ is in some ways affected by the health of this ecosystem. And when we do something to that microbiome, even though everything else is fine, you start to get sick. So we're learning so much about this now that it's shocking to realize that this complex interplay of all these organisms that are in your gut, whether they're bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses, just like if you picked up soil out of the ground, you would realize that there's this complex interplay of bacteria balancing parasites and fungi and viruses, all of them working in different ways to have a healthy ecosystem. Just like you go to a state park and there's something missing, and here in Miami we're dealing with an invasive species of I'm blanking on they're iguanas, and they're killing these little salamanders that we have here, and they're affecting the ecosystem here. Just like in the Everglades, there are snakes that are killing alligators that weren't naturally here. So we've introduced something that is upsetting the delicate balance of different animals. The same thing happens in your gut. You need to have this complex interplay with the right amount of bacteria, fungi, parasites, and viruses. And all of these things, there's so many things that can impact that. So as we know, the microbiome is not just helping with nutrient delivery. That's really what that complex interplay is so important for. It also actually produces nutrients, and we'll get into that in another video, but it's also the front line of your immune system. It's like you are walking into an ecosystem, and the ecosystem has a front line, and that's what the microbiome acts as. So what are some positive factors to make it a healthy ecosystem? Well, we'll broaden this with time, but exposure to various environments. You want to get out into nature, because when the ecosystem that's inside of you is exposed to ecosystem outside of you, healthy ones, you develop biodiversity inside your gut. Fermented foods, all traditional cultures have had some fermented foods. I recommend that everyone make sauerkraut at home, and check out the video on this page for how to do that. And then various plant fibers, because they give food. It's like what's called the prebiotic fiber, and we'll talk about that in another video, but it provides food for the bacteria in your gut. Negative factors like pesticides, of course, antibiotics, stress can affect the ecosystem, just like the stress of poisons in an environment outside can affect the complex interplay of living organisms in a system. And sugar can cause overgrowth of things because it's not a natural ingredient to our diet, especially if it's done in excess. So let's close the microbiome and move over to the barrier function. Remember, we discussed earlier that the gut is essentially connected to the outside. So just like your skin acts as a barrier between you and the environment, so does the gut, because the gut is taking things in from the environment, and so it needs a barrier between it and what's been ingested, what's been eaten, and the bloodstream. And so it provides this barrier function. And it's a very, very narrow barrier function. I mean, it's basically one cell that's keeping the gut intact, and it wants to keep unwanted things out of the body. So you want this gut lining to be really solid, like a solid line of defense, and you want it to be intelligent. You want it to be able to allow the right things in and keep the wrong things out. But what do? We drink alcohol, we take NSAIDs, constipation meds. There's glyphosates in our non-organic foods that can affect the barrier function of the gut and allow things into our bodies that we don't want to get in. Going back to alcohol for a second, really, it's not like you can't have a glass of alcohol or a glass of wine every once in a while, but please realize that most of the studies now show that alcohol is just simply a poison, and there's very, very, very little evidence nowadays to show that it's helpful in any way. So just be aware of that. And to conclude, the immune system. Believe it or not, the majority of your immune system is just behind the gut lining. It's the gastrointestinal associated lymphoid tissue, and it is really processing the things that are coming through the gut lining, because it's acting like a barrier, and then what gets through your immune system, it's like the second line of defense. It's there waiting to see what's coming down the road. And if it doesn't like it, then your body can react and overreact, which can cause all kinds of problems from your skin to your endocrine organs, and it can affect pretty much every organ in your body. So what are the positive factors? Sleep and exercise will broaden this out. There's lots of things, but keep in mind that overactive exercise, speaking of exercise, can actually inhibit, can damage the gut lining. This has been shown in studies. So the right amount of exercise, but really anything that reduces stress overall, is going to improve the immune system overall and the immune system located in your gut. Another thing to mention that I could easily add here, which is paying attention to the body's rhythms, the circadian rhythms, because your gut actually needs to rest, and so does really every other organ in your body. So establishing different cycles in your body and paying attention to those, and not really abusing those cycles by doing an all-nighter or anything that you can think of that's going to upset the natural cycles of your body. But the ones you want to pay attention to are having a good night's sleep, stopping eating a couple hours before you go to sleep so that you have a longer duration of time for your gut to rest and your body to go into sort of a detox cycle. And also, your immune system also needs downtime during the day. We have two nervous systems that interact with your immune system, and they need some downtime during the day. So let's go back to understanding gut health, and we'll be building this out with other videos coming. So feel free to subscribe to see us broaden this out. And to summarize, we really need to, if you're dealing with a gut issue, you should really start thinking about it from the microbiome, the barrier function, and the immune system. This is Dr. Carp. Thank you for your attention, and if you like this format of video, please let me know your comments below, and I look forward to seeing you next time.